Welcome back. In this lesson, we're talking communication. Communication in your relationship, specifically around sex, raising sexual issues, and dealing with those issues when things go awry. Pamela, I guess first up, let's talk about sex and what your fantasies are. How do you bring up what you really want with your partner?
Being clear and precise about what you want with your partner, and sometimes that just means having some fun as well as verbalising what you would like to do, but incorporating in that fun.
Right, so you're saying that for a couple to have good communication in bed, is it a matter of, oh, sweetheart, go down on me now, would you, and pushing her head down? And
No. That's one big turn off for a girl is to have her head pushed down onto a guy's penis. Hopefully you can say, babe, I'd love you to give me a head job.
Right.
Please. I'm dying for one.
All right.
And if she says no, yeah, okay. Some girls don't want to do fellatio, head jobs.
Well, I've heard that Australians are known as, the Australian disease is for men is that they don't go down on women either. But that's only what I've heard around the gossip scene. Okay, moving on.
Unfortunately, that's not true. Or fortunately, I mean, that's not true.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in bed, therefore, we should treat bed as a playpen, as having fun, and obviously sharing intimate moments. So it's not a matter of telling a partner. But let's say things now, let's moving on to our topic really of infidelities come up in the relationship, or not infidelity per se, but let's say third parties have come up and unrest, sexual unrest and issues have come up in the relationship. How are couples expected to maturely deal with those issues?
Facing them, discussing this with each other, and sometimes sex, even though it's a big part of a relationship, can be very difficult for some couples to be open and honest about their sexual wants, needs and desires.
How does a couple know when to seek professional help?
When the sex is very infrequent for what you both would like, one partner has just decided they don't want sex anymore, and when the sex is completely waning within the relationship.
Going to fidelity now, and I found out that my partner is unfaithful, so the trust is gone, and we touched on this in lesson number 1. But really, what can I do to recover from this loss, and what are the steps that I can take, if there are steps that I can take, to rebuild a good relationship?
That's a time factor, and for every single person within that relationship it's going to be different. For the person who has acted on the infidelity, they can be guilt-stricken, and they can have to deal with their guilt and the repercussions of what has happened within the relationship and how that has affected the relationship. So being able to, and then for the other person who has had the infidelity happen toward them, they're hurt, their trust is gone. So it's really building the relationship in all areas, not just sexually, but in all areas from scratch again, and re-establishing the trust and where you are both and the boundaries with what you both are prepared to put up with or not put up with within the relationship.
All right. Now that's specifically on infidelity, i.e. someone's done something wrong. But what about where we've both willingly, consensually ventured down the fantasy line, and we've been going to a few swingers parties, and we've had a third person involved in the relationship, but it's going wrong. Things are going wrong because, as you mentioned earlier in one of the earlier lessons, there's an intimacy that's lost. The relationship somehow breaks a little bit, and there's something that can we get that back again after we've gone through all this adventure together?
Yes, you can, But again, that's a time factor
As well.
as well. Everything around sex and relationships, if it's gone awry somewhere, you need to be able to give the partner and the relationship space and to be able to take in what has been happening. But for some people, it's just not going to work.
Pamela, you said, we hear this phrase a lot, sweetheart, I'd just like to give us some space, or I'd like to give you some space. When people say space, from a therapist's point of view, are you saying space is okay for me to say, sweetheart, I need to go 10 days away. I need to go on a holiday for 10 days or get away. Is that space or not?
That's a lot of space.
Okay, that's a lot, okay.
Sometimes space might mean just, I'd like to go down the road for a coffee, or I'd just like to go away for the day, or go and spend some time with the boys, go and take the dog for a walk. Just get out of the four walls and reassess my feelings and my emotions and what is going on for me here, right here and now, for yourself personally. But sometimes partners don't particularly like it when a partner says, look, I need time out, or I'd like a bit of time out. Hopefully you'll be able to think, okay, that's fine. I'll give you what you need. Who are we really to say, I'll give you this?
All right.
Just because we're in a relationship does not mean, hopefully, that we lose our sense of self. And anybody, whether we're single or in a relationship, we need to have our own space, our own place of refuge that we can just be comfortable with for ourselves, to have time to think.
I guess when you say don't lose sense of self, I would think also that means I need to be able to keep my own friends, be able to play tennis with my tennis mates, and she needs to keep her network of friends. We both need to have our separate lives, but also our life together.
Yes.
Is that what you mean? She keeps her sense of self.
But as long as the other interests and our own sense of self does not override the relationship.
I understand.
Because if you're in a relationship, primarily, hopefully, the relationship is up there and everything else can fit in within the relationship context. Otherwise, why are you in a relationship?
I hear what you're saying. So if a guy says to a girl, I'm playing golf every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, so she knows that's it, no weekends away, no quality time with you on the weekends. That's putting golf as a higher priority to the relationship.
Yes.
All right. Another question is, again, maybe from hearsay and my own experience, is when fights come up in a relationship, it tends to be, you've got the problem, you should see a therapist. And then they go, no, you've got the problem, you see a therapist. How does a couple, again, intelligent, emotionally mature couple, work out whether they should see a therapist individually or see a therapist as a couple?
If the same issue keeps on arising within the relationship, and it's a couple concern. So relationships are about people. If you were in a single and an issue was coming up, and you weren't getting clarity, or you were still stumbling around an issue, you would seek help. So as a couple, the relationship is arising within the dynamics of that coupledom. So it would be a good idea for the both of you to see the therapist together.
Even though your partner might say to you, say for instance, sweetheart, you really have trust issues. And that's because your father walked out on your mother when you were 3 years of age. You really need to see a therapist about it.
Hear that and think, okay, I'll give that some thought.
All right. Pamela, thank you for your insights today on communication. If I could ask you to just sum up your overall philosophy of how a couple should communicate, what would you say?
Openness and honesty
Is the best policy.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pamela. Well, that brings us to the end of our 3-part lesson. I hope you've enjoyed Pamela's insights as much as I have, and I wish you well in all your relationships.